evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, the largest single-screen drive-in in the United States. We're certainly glad you could be with us this evening, and don't forget the concession stand is open with all kinds of great things to eat and drink.
89.3 Mahoning Drive-In Radio, your old friend Virgil back once again for another exciting episode of the podcast. As you guys know, the only podcast dedicated to the love and revival of our beloved drive-in culture. And we're so excited as we're moving into our 2023 season. And every drive-in across the country is now thriving as the beautiful weather is sweeping across the land. Joined as always by my co-host and general manager extraordinaire, Mark. Say hello, my friend.
Hello.
Also joined by projectionist, owner of the Mahoning Drive-In Theater, King Jeff. Say hello, my friend.
Hi, everybody.
And as we continue our owner series on the Mahoning Drive-In podcast, we've been so blessed, having so much fun talking to the folks that make up the cinematic landscape across the country and beyond. And it really is such a treat to not only be able to promote them, but also become friendly with them, because we really are like-minded, living the same lives, just in different areas of the country. And today we're so lucky to have Jeffrey Riggs, owner and operator of the 21 Drive-In out of Missouri, which was built in 1952. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So excited to have you. I follow you guys on social media, and I have been following you guys for a while on the social media. And I love the stuff that you do. It's kind of a mixture. You do a really good job out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, but let's jump into it and give people kind of a layout of where you're at. I mean, in Missouri, I assume it's kind of a rural situation, but are you built up? Are you in the middle of nowhere like us?
Oh, we are in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, that helps us, right?
Yeah, absolutely in the middle of nowhere. If the moon is not out and my projector is not running, there's high risk of speaker post collision.
Just getting totally lost, wandering in the dark.
Yep.
That's amazing. Well, what is the history? You guys opened up in 1952. Is it family operated? Did you come into it?
I came into it. It's had, as far as I know, I think there's been 4 different owners, maybe 5 different ownerships, being one owner owning it twice.
Oh, wow.
It's never really changed family hands throughout its ownership.
That's amazing. That's what we love to hear. 9 times out of 10, that's the case. Is it's family passed on?
Oh no, I mean it's never been passed on to a family member. It's
I see.
Like when a new ownership comes in, it's not of the same family, any of them.
Oh, how about that? So really, it's been a series of people coming in, reviving, running it for their time. Very cool.
Yeah, it seems like there's been quite a few people that have had like a stewardship of it. It was built they started construction, I think, in 1951. Clyde Davis, he built the drive-in. He was a gentleman out of Ellington, Missouri. It's about 17 miles north of us on Highway 21. And he owned it for quite a long time, and then some stuff happened and he sold it to someone. I don't know what the name of that ownership was. There was a big fire at the local newspaper years and years ago. I think it was like sometime in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
And there was
a black hole.
There was a lot of record storage there, and like, you don't get people up there all the time being forthright and telling you, like, coming forward with the information sometimes. Right. But I know that the guy that he sold it to, like after a couple of years, like Clyde wasn't happy about how that guy was running it, and he came back in and owned it again. And I don't know exactly how long that ran to. And then there was another family in Van Buren, Missouri, which is about 9 miles east or west of us. We're technically in Garwood.
Yes.
So they ran it for quite a while, and then I think they're the family that like it went dark. I think in like the VHS age.
Oh yeah.
I'm thinking I've never gotten an official date. I think it went dark like sometime in the like maybe late 80s, 86, 87. And then the people that I bought it from, Cecil and Diane Price, they had owned it and reopened it back up. I want to say 1998.
Oh wow, so a
And
good 10 years there where it was just
where
sitting.
where it was just sitting. Some of those pictures that I sent you guys, like I said, I pulled them from the Speaker Post Facebook page, and where someone during its dark age had, jumped over the fence and
Wandered
like
in, yes.
wandered in and taken some pictures, and like nobody up around there has really ever shared that kind of stuff with me. I posted on my social media and asked for people to send it to me all the time. I'd love to see a ton of those pictures. I just don't get them.
Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat with the Patreon that we run. Mark does an amazing job of sifting through all the old theater ads, and I think at a certain point, we kind of have that black hole era too, right, Mark?
Yeah, there's a period of time where the coverage online just, I don't know, I think maybe it changed which newspaper they were advertising in or something like that. So I'm still working. Might have to go the old shoe leather route and go to some old microfilm in local libraries or something.
Running some microfiche.
I think I might have to.
Yeah, and I would love to run the microfiche too, but like I said, at that paper where I had that almost all the owners had done all their advertising and stuff like that through publication, it all got lost.
Crazy. That is just
You know?
nuts. So it truly is this void.
I wander upon bits every now and again at, surrounding flea markets that happen to be within like a good 60, 70-mile vicinity of the drive-in.
Oh, that's awesome. Rediscovering pieces
stuff
of its history. We
Yeah,
love
and
that
then
Speaker Post group. It's such a great
Yeah.
community.
And it's tough though, because when you find that stuff, like you're stuck, like you're buying it, it's there.
Yeah. No way of getting around it.
Yeah, there's no, like, it's unacceptable not to purchase it, especially if it's like during a weekend where I'm wandering around, probably still wearing 21 drive-in attire.
Gear. They see you coming from a mile away. They're like, hook. Got him.
We got like 2 sales in Booth 5, guys.
Well, it sounds like, I don't know if you grew up around the 21, but what's your history with the 21?
Okay, so my history with the 21 is I went to it a few times after high school because, like I said, they reopened it in 98. So I graduated in 96.
Yeah.
And so we went there every great once in a while. Some people would load up and go out there while Cecil and Diane owned it. But, if it had been open during my teenage years, I probably would have monopolized it quite a bit. Because I had a cool old hot rod truck and
oh yeah,
and it would have been great, but work and life gets in the way once you get a little bit older like that. It makes it harder to get up there. And once it had, like I said, I'd been up there a few times, but my real connection with it was the former owners, Cecil and Diane Price.
Yeah.
I used to run my parents' medical waste business years and years ago, as soon as I was old enough to do it, because that's the way family businesses work.
Oh, yeah.
And so I used to go around nursing homes, doctors' offices all the time. And, of course, I'm obviously a huge movie nerd, grew up around loving movies. And I was in the nursing home up in Ellington one day, and I heard some of the nurses talking to Diane about the drive-in, what's going to be on at the drive-in this weekend and blah, blah, blah. And so I talked to her, and because it was a means for me to get movie posters, quite honestly.
Yeah.
And so struck up a friendship with her. And while she was still at the nursing home, I would get posters from her. And then now and again, when I'd go to the drive-in, she'd give me some here and there. And then she was no longer at the nursing home. And then years later, I started selling nails for Mid-Continent Nail, which is like the United States' largest nail manufacturer.
Yeah. And
it's based out of Poplar Bluff, the town that I grew up and live in. And started going around to all the pallet factories around, rural Missouri, right? Stuff all around the drive-in. and walked into Cecil and Diane's place, and they've had a sawmill for generations, and got to be friends with her again. And, you know, after years of friendship with her, I worked for Mid-Continent for almost 11 years, and just became friends. And she, knew how much I cared about it and thought the drive-in was awesome. So we, we just got to be friends, and she started talking to me about, she thinks she'd like me to own it.
Wow, come on. Talk about a destined scenario.
Yeah.
You not only crossed paths once, but reconnected and then rekindled this kind of friendship and led you here. That's wild.
Yeah.
Where does that love of movies come from? I mean, it sounds like you had a little bit of dip in the toe with the 21, but did you go to other drive-ins as a kid? When did you get hooked by the bug?
There weren't many around here. There was one, and it just opened back up last year in Piedmont, Missouri. It went dark for about 7 or 8 years and just opened up back up last season. They're about 45 minutes away from me.
Yeah.
And it's a much smaller drive-in, a much smaller screen. I would say there's a maybe 2 to 250 cars at the most is probably what they could get in their gates.
Right.
And that was a much further drive from Poplar Bluff than it would be to get to the 21. So it was one of those deals where, man, that thing was a good, hour.
That was
10,
a trek.
15, yeah,
right.
It was a good hour and 10, 15 minutes. And when you're super young, like, your parents rarely let you sneak off and do stuff like that. And it wasn't as big and as cool.
I feel like we were spoiled back in the day with the amount of choices that we had. In PA, we're very lucky because we have so many, but
I've researched some of that early drive-in era East Coast stuff, and they were just everywhere.
It's insane, and that's really what we're trying to bring back with this love and appreciation of the culture. Is there was something truly lost when a lot of these communities lost their community space to go and enjoy movies together and just enjoy each other together. And anytime that we can shine a light on a drive-in that is able to revive that, I mean, again, we're so like-minded, it's kind of crazy. So what gave you the confidence to be like, I am going to jump in and take this puppy over? Did they have a successful business running, or was it like, hey, I got to come in and revive some stuff?
I mean, it was pretty good, but they were getting to the point to where they were just done with it. When I got it from them, we started talking. We actually went through the process in 2016 and got right to the finish line, and Diane pulled out and was like, I can't do it. I'm not ready, And then she came back to me again a year later, and she was like, I was wrong. She's like, I'm getting old, and I want to have weekends again. And she had been running the sawmill day and then doing the drive-in at night and on the weekends. And but because of that, they didn't really encourage a ton of any really kind of stuff that really makes drive-ins pop off, community-driven events and doing private shows for people that want to do private shows, whether it be for organizations or stuff like that. They didn't have any social media presence at all. For years before I even owned it, I owned all the tags to the social media.
But so were you helping them out with that before even?
No. There was a local lady that had a little Facebook page that she used to run for Diane because Diane didn't want to mess with it. But other than that, that's really all they had.
Right.
As far as in the internet atmosphere, and because they went for so many years without getting big community involvement with other people and other businesses and stuff like that, it just eventually became really a non-option. People just didn't ask, you know? And I'm still fighting that fight, and people will show interest sometimes, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on around here during this time of the year. Van Buren just down the road where the river is at. It's a huge tourist area.
Yeah.
Because people come from all over the country to come float the current river. It's beautiful. But we would always tell them, come here and spend all day over here. There's tons of stuff around Van Buren and Ellington. One of the biggest natural springs in the world is right there in Van Buren, Blue Springs.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a great summer town. But it's small and insulary, and I'm not from over there. I'm a Poplar Bluff guy.
Yeah.
But we're getting there. But I mean, my big love for movies, it was probably, Rogers Theater in Poplar Bluff, where I grew up.
Oh, yeah. So that's what, your childhood theater?
Oh, yeah. The Rogers was where everybody went. We had another small theater in the middle of town. Both of them were 2 screens. The other one was the Mansion Mall Theater, which was in like a tiny little mini mall deal.
Right.
It was a box. It had no character. If you looked up the Rogers Theater on Facebook and stuff like that, you'd see it's like this really cool old looking movie house with like this humongous marquee that like jots out in a triangle. Looks like it's shooting out into the street with the big tower and stuff.
We love that. There's such a crossover with the drive-in culture and the movie house culture. Anybody not alive.
Yeah. Like anytime you go to a cool movie house, you're just like, it makes the movie so much better.
So true. You go back in time. It's very much like the drive-in appeal. There's something inherently built in that's nostalgic, even if you're not nostalgic for it. It's very weird.
Oh yeah, you can't help it.
Well, it sounds like you're the same era as me. So video store, cable kid.
That
really hooked
cable kid. My parents always had like whatever the newest descrambler was, even though it was like one of those giant satellite-sized antennas that took 4 minutes to change the channel.
The black
you
box.
push like 502, and then you'd look out the window and you just see the satellite start moving. You're in about 5 minutes
of the curve.
HBO.
Yeah, my parents were so like that. My mother was obsessive. She used to record like everything off of.
The wall.
It's like, look, if we're paying for it, we're getting our money's worth.
Oh yeah, the
Everything
wall of VHSs with labels on it.
Oh my God, yeah.
God forbid you record over something they wanted to watch.
That's right. It was. I look back on it, and that's really where my obsessive kind of nature began. Is like, anybody who would do that is cool.
Latchkey kids mass consuming media at a reckless abandonment.
That's right. I mean, it's true. It's one of the situations.
So how did yours work? Was it a multi-screen? Like
what movie theater
on your satellite unit?
Oh, no.
When you were growing up as a kid.
Well, for us, we had the VCR that you were able to do 2 tapes and you can go back and forth. So I did personal dubs from the video store, but it was that recording process. She was a big soap opera gal, and like it was like the timer. She was a whiz with this thing. It would come on. You couldn't touch it at certain hours. Don't go in the room.
Oh yeah. I was the programming director for my grandmother's Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful.
Yes.
For certain. But I mean, the way my parents worked is like you could always watch live satellite, but you just had like one unit. This was back in the 80s, early 90s.
Right.
But it had 2 feed lines. So one went to like the living room in the basement that had the huge TV, and the other one went to your parents' room. But they always were on the same channel. So like,
no way to
like if there was a crazy good movie that was probably a little bit too inappropriate for you to watch, but you knew it was coming on late, it was always Russian roulette to change the channel.
Who's gonna win?
Yes. Yeah, in case they were up already watching something.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, the technology definitely pushed the love of movies, and just the idea back then of being like, wait, I can own this? I can revisit this again? It seems so old man now, but it was like, we are gods. We are gods.
Yeah, I remember my dad was a really good friends with the guy. His name was Steve Wisdom here in Poplar Bluff. And for years and years, Showtime Video was the spot. Like, we didn't have Blockbusters and stuff like that in Poplar Bluff, but this local guy named Steve Wisdom like had this super awesome video store here in Poplar Bluff. Had actually 2 locations because he was just killing it. And my dad was really good friends with him, and like we would like get stuff all the time. You know, you'd go to the video store with your dad, and you know Steve would be like, "Hey, he'd like this," and like it's not out for another week. So, but you know, we've got boxes of them in the back.
You had a local dealer per se who was like,
"Yeah, right,
hook you up with the goods."
Like, I know, yeah. He's like, "I know you need your fix, man. I know you need it."
Evil Dead 2 just came in.
Yeah,
Got it back.
yeah. You'd walk by, like the dream was when you walk by like that very small section, like this big cubicle in the middle of the room where the laser discs were.
Oh yeah, royalty, right?
Yeah,
I'm still a Laserdisc guy. I still have my player. I still collect.
I never had any of them. I've watched a few things on them, but
You're probably better for it. You know, it's the collecting bug has bit all of us on this call, and it's, you know, it's a rabbit hole that you can't pull yourself out of.
If you think crates of records are heavy, start moving around crates of laser discs.
Yes,
I'm sure.
Yeah, or 35 millimeter film.
That's right.
Man, Jeff, I'm here to tell you right now. I watched that documentary, and like watching you guys cut that film together just like makes my skin crawl.
That's beautiful.
Splicing that, I've always, since I've owned it, the theater's always been digital. I've never had to mess with that. When we arrived, there was very few remnants of that lying around, other than I've got boxes and boxes of 35 millimeter trailers though.
Ooh, yeah. We're now best friends.
Oh yeah.
you got boxes. A theater who can put them to good use.
I'm not gonna lie, I've chopped some of them up, but
sure,
there's an overwhelming wealth of still just available stuff.
Oh, we love
it's
that.
All stuff that happened during Cecil and Diane's era while they did 35 millimeter film, which, like I said, would have been late 90s till 2015.
Yeah, that's our wheelhouse, baby. Yeah, we try to do a 35 millimeter pre-show trailer reels. We try to do the intermissions between, so we try to be fully immersive when it comes to the 35 mil. But most of our collection has been pulled from all parts of the country from people who are like, "Hey, I got this. I can't do anything with it. You guys gonna?"
Yeah, man. I've got 2 projectors. I've got platters. I've got.
Yeah, see, it's all who you know. That's beautiful.
And it's not doing me any good. I mean, I would love for another theater to make use of it. I've toyed with the notion. I tried to get Rogers to take one because when our big box 8 screen finally came in here in Poplar Bluff, Mansion Mall got torn down and Rogers got sold to the city. Now, the city keeps it, and they try to do plays and musical events and stuff there, but they took out all their movie equipment when they...
Yeah, sounds very familiar. We just went through something like that with a local theater here.
Yeah, and there's also Reynolds County Museum that I've thought about giving one of the projectors to, because we're literally... my fence line, if you hop over my fence line, you're in Carter County, but we're in Reynolds County, even though like we're way further away from all of the like what would be considered larger towns in Reynolds County.
Right.
Our closest person next to us is easily Van Buren, like I said, about 9 miles west of us. Yeah. And Elsinore is about 15 miles from us, and Poplar Bluff is right at about, I can leave my door and be pulling into the drive-in in about 35 minutes.
That's beautiful.
Not bad.
Well, we luck out in that way too. We have a tourist attraction in Jim Thorpe, which isn't far from us, and
nice.
it's that curiosity thing. We get a certain percentage of people that just are like, "Hey, there's a drive-in in town. I'm going to go check this out." So
yeah, I would say my breakdown is probably, since Poplar Bluff is easily the largest town closest to the drive-in, I would say anywhere between 30 and 40% of my audience sometimes comes from Poplar Bluff. The other 30-ish% is a mix of Ellington, Van Buren, and Elsinore. And probably the last little bit of that percentage is the tourists that are in town for the river, or for the springs, or at one of whatever closed campgrounds. Clearwater Lake is right down the road from us as well.
It all works out. Sometimes location is key, and it's wild to think that these things were built in the 40s, 50s, and still somehow it works out now that the land's been developed to still deliver you an audience.
Yeah, I mean, it gets rough sometimes. I mean, my biggest complaint being first run and a single screen is
Oh, your hands are tied.
the
Yep.
booking obligations.
Yep.
I'm always fine with a 2-week booking. It's the 3-week bookings because the way things are staggered, they're almost always staggered every 2 weeks. So, I mean, I was a multi-screen, it would be so much easier to flex and move things around.
Yeah, the owners we're talking to, that's always the thing I push. I'm like, so that second screen, that's just for you to play around on, right? It's like it makes
Right.
things so much easier as far as appeasing that because you can scoot things that you have to keep for multiple weeks over to your smaller screen or whatever the
Correct.
case is. And yeah, it's really difficult. And we talk about this all the time. Like, what is Hollywood now? What is the releasing schedule now? It's so crazy.
Right.
Like, when Megan came out, I swear that it was available on digital 2 days later, it felt like. Where
Yeah.
it's like
So,
keeping
yeah,
something for 3 weeks seems kind of crazy, you know?
yeah, you're poking the bear. Uh, I
Let it loose, brother. Let it loose, brother. Let it loose.
yeah, I believe concessions should be made for single screens, and a lot of us drive-ins like really helped them out during COVID, like really did, and the ones that were able to function. Mine wasn't because of other circumstances, but I got open later on in the season.
Yeah.
And they were just giving stuff away, which was nice. I'm not going to lie. It was super nice. But immediately because of COVID opened the door to the way quick digital releases. I mean, super, super fast. So we gave them all this help, and we, for a better part, kept the kind of movie going experience alive during that pandemic.
Fact.
And yeah, it's a fact. Like, they can't argue that. Like, people were putting them up in shopping parking lots. I mean, and so then after the smoke cleared, they went right back to hammering away and didn't give anything back. And not only did they not give anything back, but they didn't change their digital release schedule either. They just kept shoving it out as fast as they could too. So my argument on that, as far as booking, is if they're going to give it away really, really quick to another market, and I think the regular theaters have a gripe on this too, but so where's the rub? So are you going to do me better on a percentage, or are you going to be nice and let me just keep it 2 weeks? Or if it's something that's not tracking real good, let me just keep it 1.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand that they do not realize, especially for a single screen operation, if they would allow us that just a little bit more bit of flexibility, it would be much easier. I could have half my summer probably scheduled.
Sure.
If I could just stick to a 2-week obligation, because those 2-week obligations make the decision, especially if you know your audience, really, really cut and dry, depending on what's being released, on which one you're going to go with. So if you're going to make me keep it for the same lengths of time, then if you're going to release it early, then let me pay you less of a percentage, because you're going to go out there and get it from someone else here later on.
You would think, and that's as the booker here, it's amazing to me that there is no established line of communication between exhibitors and the studios, where it's like, these are things that could benefit everybody across the board.
They could benefit everyone across the board. It would make pulling, like I said, because you can publicize it more. They don't realize that. So when you got to do a 3-week obligation, even if it's just a banger of a release, and week 1 is going to be super awesome, and week 2 is probably going to be still pretty good. Yeah. But then week 3 is going to be not so great. And their argument is always like, well, you get to keep a bigger percentage of that smaller night. And I'm
you get to keep a percentage of nothing.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So, because a lot of times, if the other if the other studio isn't playing nice, because I'm sure you guys do retro, so I'm guessing like your booking fees are probably on your retro stuff is probably like 17.5% on a double feature, 35% whole versus whatever your booking amount is.
Yeah, it's pretty traditional in that sense. We do try to push for a lot of flat rates because we work with so many studios on any given night. Like we do quadruple features. Sometimes we're working with 4 different studios, so it's hard to cut up that pie, but as long as they get their piece, they're always happy.
But they always want a lot less of a percentage for the older stuff.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
you know, they hit us with that 70, 65. I've been asked to take 75 and argued them back down to 70 before.
Yeah. It's a game. You know, it's all a game.
It's a shell game. It's a total shell game.
That's the hardest part. And, you know, we are the anomaly functioning as a full retro 35 millimeter theater. But I really do feel for any first run, you know, who has to kind of balance and do that juggling act. It's a different type of juggling what we do, but yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, I bet hunting down rights for some of the stuff that you guys play is pretty rough sometimes.
The rights you know, it's really the prints where it's like, okay, we found the rights.
Yeah, I bet that's a nightmare.
Does a print exist? So there's many a show that we've just had to abandon because it's, you know, just not available or not a good enough print available to run. So
yeah, do you ever have like a real hot lead fall out at the last minute?
Oh my God, so many times. Yeah.
We've had
like,
prints not show up at the last minute.
Oh yeah. We infamously have had some screenings where we, you know, didn't receive the print. We've had to come up with a backdoor digital system, and now we're able to do anything in case things fall out. But yeah, it's a balance. You know, it's always a fine balance. But
so what's the geographical layout of you guys' drive-in? Like, is it flat? I know you guys have grass from the documentary.
Yeah, we're flat, but we got the berms all the way back.
Yeah.
I guess it's technically, if we were to include the tree line, about 14 rows, something like that. But it's massive, you know, humongous 110-foot screen. Nothing really has been touched as far as the layout goes. That's kind of the sell of the Mahoning, is it's as original as it was the day that it opened. And yeah, it's pretty wild. The things that you don't expect to become huge kind of staples become your staples.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For you, do you guys have a kind of a staple landmark? You got the marquee, you got an entryway that everybody loves, or anything like that?
The majority of our audience comes from Highway 60, which is like 4 or 5 miles down the road, down Highway 21. And everybody kind of, you start seeing the screen about a good, you know, half a mile to, you know, in between a half a mile and a quarter mile right before you get there. Kind of, if you're coming, you know, before it gets dark, it just kind of pops up, you know, you can see it.
Yeah.
I forget what the diagonal measurement is. I think it's 100-foot screen. My measurements are 84 by 36.
Nice.
About 16 foot off the ground. My geography is built like a theater. When Clyde Davis bought that land to build the drive-in, he bought it because of the way it sloped. So the screen is literally kind of like down at the bottom of the hill. And with each successive road that you go down,
I love that.
You get lower. So it's kind of built like a theater, but outside like something like an old Roman thing you'd see.
Like stadium seating for your vehicle. Oh, that's too cool.
And you park by the speaker post, it does kind of berm up a bit and tilt up. Except for the path that goes like straight from the projector booth to the concession stand. That's beat down pretty good. Not just from me, but from others.
Right. So you still have your speakers?
Yep. Speakers are still there.
Come on.
Functioning
speakers?
Yep. Good majority of them work still.
Wow. You know, we get that question all the time, and it's like, I couldn't imagine having the amount of speakers that it would take to fill that lot and keeping them all functioning. The big thing we always talked about, my Jeff, is, you know, people walking off with them. They become kind of valuable.
I lose about 1 or 2 to theft every year.
Yeah.
And I've got a box full of replacements that one of said former owners bought at one time and shoved in my shed full of treasures. And every once in a while we got to get out there and do some wiring. Of course, every great once in a while. It doesn't happen very often, but somebody will drive off with one hooked up to their window. Yeah.
Don't be one of those
guys,
people.
and guys, they're super nostalgic and cool, but they don't sound great. They don't sound great. They don't.
The tin can
The
sounding.
tin can. But I also do the radio as well. I broadcast on 103.7 FM, and I put a bunch of big Bluetooth speakers up on my concession stand roof and kind of angle them in like a fan array to shoot out. So like if you're on the first 4 or 5 rows, like you get some pretty good sound.
That's fantastic. Now, how does it, I mean, I'm so curious now. Are they all active at all times? Do they have to be turned on? My memories as a kid going to my childhood drive-in, they had the speakers for a very short time and then they came out in the 80s. But the thing I always loved, just like I love on the Mahoning lot, there's this kind of flowing roof of sound. No matter where you are on the lot, there's always the noise going. So
yeah, and because of the way it's structured, like the sound carries because it's built like an amphitheater kind of.
right,
And
yeah,
when we've had bands out there before, I've been hanging out up at the ticket booth, which is a good ways away from the screen. I'd say at least 220 yards.
yeah.
That's where my projector's at as well. And like I can hear them just great down there.
Acoustics rocking.
And it just bounces off the screen.
Yep.
And it carries through there.
That's amazing. Sounds like a beautiful setup, super inviting. Going back to your love of movies, any kind of choice memories from the old movie house? And also curious what the first movie is that you ran as the owner at the 21.
First movie I ran as the owner of the 21 was a double feature of Black Panther.
Yep.
And Avengers Endgame as the second.
That's the way to come out swinging, I'd say,
Bad weather.
Yeah.
And encroaching storms. Okay, but not like, it wasn't one of those deals where, after night one, you walk down to the concession and you're like, that's it. This is it. Is it this easy every night? Yeah, yeah. Just like that, Not so much. But, I mean, you have those nights. I mean, we have good nights and we have bad nights. I mean, there's, like I said, the audiences are so split. But we're getting better and getting more people to come. It's just, like I said, there's so many different things going on.
And that's the way the world is now. You talked about the challenge that the theater had when cable and the video store was big and prevalent. It was the same situation talking to owners back in the day when the television came out. And it was like,
right,
we've gone through so many battles and hurdles as an industry. But the one thing that has stood true is people have this need and love and want to get together and go to the movies together.
Oh, and yeah.
It's kind of proof in the pudding after the pandemic that it's not going anywhere. It's just restructured over and over and over again at this point.
Right. And I'm sure you guys' atmosphere, I mean, I'm sure there's a ton of people that do just faithfully watch, even though you guys are repertory, the movies when they come out there. But definitely from what my experience was when I started, that was one of the things that we brought to it when we owned it, was that we started doing a Thursday night movie, an old school retro, just a single feature Thursday night movie, always something old.
Yeah.
And you never get as big of a crowd on a Thursday night in this area, even in the summertime because people are working. You do get a lot of the touristy people that are in the Van Buren and Ellington area and stuff that'll come out there. But the working people, like the locals, they loved the Thursday night when we introduced that, because for years and years, the majority of the jobs over in that area, when the area is really humming, is summertime.
Yeah.
So the tourist industry over there is a cottage industry. So all the locals are always in the summertime. They're busting their humps on that river all day long.
Yeah.
And like, they just don't have the energy or don't want to people anymore, which I'm sure you guys can get that, because there's times there's times out there where I'm done peopling.
Yeah, putting on the song and dance. And you're like, all right, I need a break.
Yeah. I hilarious. One of the best runs we had as far as attendance was in 2019. I think it was on that run where we had like all Disney had a bunch of stuff stacked, and like since we booked all of Disney, we got a little bit better of a percentage, but they were stuff that it was Toy Story 4 and the new Lion King and the new Aladdin and all
Oh
this
yeah.
stuff that people were jonesing for really hard. And I got to give them a double Disney, which they can't resist.
Yeah.
And it was just bonkers. So we went like, I think 5 or 6 weeks solid of what I would consider high volume children.
Yeah.
And we were about a week and a half away from the end of that booking run that I had made with them. And one of the girls in the concession stand was like, what are we playing next weekend? And I just laughed. I said, next weekend is all
anything without a child.
Everything, and we did horror for 2 straight solid weeks. Attendance was much lower. I'll be honest, I wasn't upset about it.
Yeah, you got to take your breather every now and then,
Yeah, the horror crowd is a different crowd, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, how do you work your pricing? You do carload? Is it per person like us?
We do per person. When we do the retro nights, we'll do $10. We'll do $10 for a carload. But during a regular business night, ages 11 and up is $10. Ages 10 to 6 is $2, and 5 and under gets in free.
Come on, you can't beat that.
No, you can't.
It's funny that you brought up the Thursdays because we started doing Tuesdays during the pandemic, and we found the same thing. There were people who came out of the woodwork and are like, you have no idea like how much it hurts being somebody that has to work every weekend, seeing your cool events and being like, I'm never able to get there. It gives those people some sort of bite at the apple,
I would always tell the locals, I'd be like, when they'd tell me, thanks for doing the Thursday nights. We actually get to come, and I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, it's not the new stuff. And they're like, so what? Like,
some solids.
As solid as you can. Of course, you don't get if you're first run, you don't get to book anything repertory from Disney.
Yeah.
But everybody else plays ball pretty nice, as long as they don't have like some sort of anniversary thing going on.
Yeah, you catch the moratoriums and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, the lower attendance on the Thursday nights doesn't ever bother me. It's one of those things where honestly, if you can get a business to sponsor the Thursday night and that covers your booking fee and you don't have to worry about a super high attendance, you don't ever get mad about a low attendance, because the people that come out to watch, Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Gremlins or something like that, those people are just thrilled that they're going to get to watch that thing on a big, huge, massive screen. And the repertory nights have always, especially the ones that are really well attended, are always like kind of a social hour. Like everybody kind of just wanders around and hangs out, because 90% of them can probably recite the movie.
That's the beauty,
Yeah, when they come out for those,
it really becomes a communal aspect.
Yeah, they don't have to pay attention all the time. They can, stop, look up, and be like, "Oh, that funny part's fixing to happen. I'm going to watch for a couple seconds," and then they can go right back to their conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a real fine line. We try to book in the Grindhouse era as well as the popcorn, movies that are going to hit everybody. And it's strange, it's the people that come out and support. You never know what's going to be the draw, what's going to excite people. Sometimes the rarer the movie, the more excited people get.
Oh, yeah.
I do love the atmosphere of the retro.
So what's your closest metropolitan area?
Well, Allentown's not far from us, but then we got Philadelphia further down. But most of our fan base, it's not local. It's Philly, Jersey, New York tourists coming in.
Yeah.
People making the trek to come out and see us. So again, totally the opposite of every other owner that we're talking to, which relies on their locals in such a huge way. We also have multiple drive-ins directly around us that do first runs. So that really started in motion the idea of standing out in some way, showing things different, which led us to the retro. And then the 35 obviously is the biggest kind of seller. The fact that we're the only remaining full-time 35 millimeter drive-in is it's a
Oh,
staple,
I'm sure
you
that
know. And
I'm
Yeah.
sure the film nerds love you guys.
it's the
Yeah.
best, you know. It's a community, and it really goes hand in hand with what we're doing, you know, the idea of being mouthpieces for the drive-in culture and spreading the love for everybody across the country. It's kind of nice that they can come to a film mecca that is hyper focused on the appreciation of it all. It kind of is an easy pill or an easy crossover, I guess, with that
Yeah,
market,
it
you
can.
know.
I'm sure it can be. I don't get a lot of. There's not a ton of film snobbery type people around me. If I were closer to a metropolitan area, I would probably go all repertory and just nerd out.
Totally pull those cinephiles. It's tough. I mean, because you know, there's some nights that are so gamble, and you look at what's come out first run, and you're like, well, gosh, that's on the nose. It's got the money machine behind it, letting everybody know that it's here. But it's a
And
different
yeah,
beat. It
but as
really is.
much as that sometimes seem apparent, like definitely I can tell you from my experience being first run, like every once in a while, like you're just like, man, this one's gonna be solid. You know, we're gonna kill. This movie's got. There's gonna be 1,000 people come see it, and you get like 40 cars.
You never know. You
Yeah.
never know what's going to connect with people, especially now. It's such an oversaturation where I used to have my finger on the pulse so hard, you know, being in the industry, like you couldn't avoid when things were
Oh
coming
yeah,
out. I found that at a certain point running the indoors, there'd be things coming out on the calendar where I'm like, where did this come from? Like who promoted this? Who's coming to see
right.
this?
Yeah.
So there's so many factors at play. It's just wild, you know.
Yeah, and you try to keep your finger on the pulse as much as you can. I mean, I most definitely consume a massive amount of movies. Like I mean, it's my thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, I miss stuff all the time. I'm definitely a film nerd, but you know, the area of the country that I'm in, it does not afford me to play some of the weirder stuff I'd like to play sometimes because it's just
Sure.
way too much of a gamble, you know. But every
Right.
once in a while, you get to sneak. I always say I get to. Sometimes I get to sneak culture in on people on the double feature. You know.
Yes. Well, a lot of those Tuesdays will say like, you know, this is for
Yeah.
us, you know, like it's fine if we get 20 cars, we're still gonna have a great time. And we always do. That's the beauty of the
Oh
drive-in is
yeah.
it's kind of impossible.
The thing I hate about those nights the most is like cutting all the employees loose because I'm just like, all right, guys, you know, get out of here. like,
Yep. You were planning on having fun
yeah,
tonight? See
yeah,
ya.
yeah. And most of the people that most of the people that I get, other than my business partner and his girlfriend and their daughter and my son coming to help us over there on weekends, is kids. Honestly, I mean that's over in that area. That's who you can get to work in your concession stand. I've been
Yeah,
fortunate to
we know that.
Olivia was with the drive-in when we bought it, and she had been working there. She's one of those girls that works at the local ice cream shop in town called Jolly Cone. Look it up. It's just a huge slice of Americana. She loved movies and she loved the drive-in. So like her boss at the Jolly Cone never made her work on Friday and Saturday nights because she worked at the drive-in. But all other days, you know, she was at the Jolly Cone. And I had her for about 3.5 years after she graduated high school. But now she lives up in St. Louis, and like that's a crutch that I'm not going to get to lean on as much this year. But you know, but I mean, she would always have friends that would come in there and work, and those, you know, I would tell the kids, I'd be like, listen, I'm sure there's a party going on somewhere, or you guys can cut out early and tell your parents you had to work late if you want. But you know, but Jeff
Yep.
is no longer paying you to be here, and you need to make yourself scarce because we can handle who's here. You know.
Right. That makes total
Yeah, and
sense.
that gives you times with those loyal customers in those slower times too, because they come in and talk and chat you up.
Oh, absolutely. It's our favorite part. I got to ask you because you mentioned it. You got your son and daughter working there?
My business partner's daughter will come out there with him sometimes, and my son on the weekends that I have my son, he's always out there with me.
I love
my
so
my
much.
stepson, he worked out there with us the first couple of years. He was slinging pizza for a good while.
It's a family affair.
Yeah. Jude likes to hand out candy, but I don't really require a whole bunch of work out of him other than just hanging out with me while he's there.
What a dream. What a dream. I always talked about the dream was running a drive-in, which I've been talking about since I was 13. But oh my gosh, to have your parent own one or be connected in that way, to be like, okay, this is like my personal playground. It's I feel very jealous of my kids, honestly, where I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys don't
Oh,
realize how
yeah.
good you got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, that's the thing too. It's like I'm sure that's something that you've talked to other drive-in owners about, especially all the drive-in owners who are digital. I mean, it is kind of a cool toy to have. Like,
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's there's
I
many
mean,
a night where I'll go and I'll be like, on the lot late with Virgie. I'll be like, you want to watch something up on the screen? Like, for
right,
me as a kid, like, oh my God, that would just
right. Oh
blow
yeah,
my mind. I was like, you'll be the most popular kid in school eventually. You just wait.
yeah. Just wait.
Yeah.
Me and both my sons have played video games on it. Like we
Oh
played
yeah,
played
yeah,
Mario Kart on it.
okay, yeah. That's what you got to do, is lean into it. It's a lifestyle, it's a culture, the late nights, the
Oh yeah.
nonstop, it really is something that you have to embrace and really love to make it work, and
Oh yeah.
sounds like you're doing it. So you mentioned the pizza. We were looking at your website and literally drooling over your concession items.
Yeah.
Tell us about what's popular and get into these specialty pizzas, because I want a pulled pork pizza.
Yeah, pulled pork pizza is pretty good.
Come on.
Yeah, we do dessert pizzas. My friend Kristen does it's like a lemon blackberry, and
Stop.
she does like a peach cobbler. On the busier nights, she'll make a couple of them before like we open the gates and stuff like that, and we sell them by the slice. They're a little bit pricey if you buy the whole thing with the dessert pizzas, but it's too much. Like you can't,
You'll literally burst.
like yeah, you can't eat a whole one. My business partner John, he used to do a bunch of competition barbecue and everything. So all the pulled pork that we do at the drive-in, like we smoke it like for 10, 12 hours. We're in barbecue country, so
Oh yeah. That's
for
a
10, 12 hours
you
before.
can't not offer it or people will riot.
Right. Well, the Cecil and Diane, they did pulled pork and barbecue and stuff like that too when they owned it, but they just bought like the stuff that you buy from the supplier, and
Yeah, ain't the
basically
same.
pour it out of a tub and mix it all together, and like there's a difference.
Oh yeah, there
It's
is.
a huge difference. And me and my business partner John, we're foodies too. Like we almost tried to swing out and see you guys in person when we were in Pittsburgh in October. We went out there to go watch the Cardinals play their last 3 games and go see Albert and Yachty play their last games out there in
Wow,
Pittsburgh.
awesome.
Pirates, and you guys, I knew you guys weren't super far away, but it's a pretty good drive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
distance. Good 3 or 4 hours, easy.
Yeah, 4 hours at least to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and after driving 10 from Poplar Bluff, yay.
Yeah, I get it. Well, what when you came into things, did you have this idea of like, all right, I'm gonna go with a little more options at the concession stand, really make it a draw for people? Because
It
we all
really-
know it. That's how the theater industry survives.
It really wasn't adding or taking things away necessarily. It was just providing better versions of what was already being given out there. They did
Right.
hot dogs, and they did Polish sausage and egg rolls like we did. They did pretzels. They did pizza, and they did barbecue and chili and stuff like we do. But all of their stuff was pre-made stuff. Whereas like me and like John does the barbecue, I make the chili. They used to do Hunt's Brothers pizza. I got rid of that and started buying pre-frozen crusts that were at least like 3 or 4 inches larger, which doesn't seem like much, but when you're looking at a pizza that has a larger circumference, that much larger circumference, it looks like a quite
Like a legitimate pizza?
Yeah. It looks like a real pizza, whereas, let's not kid ourselves. Those Hunt's Brother jobs are gas station pizzas, all right?
Right.
And the beauty of those first years of having the drive-in and actually still using Hunt's Brothers was all it was the convenience, because it came They called them pies. And when you get them from Hunt's Brothers, a pie comes pre-sauced, pre-cheesed, basically like a frozen cheese pizza that you buy from the grocery store. And you just like shove it in the conveyor, and it goes through and it does its thing. You add the other toppings to it. Where, as the way I do it now, is the only thing that's really pre-made is that crust, and you have, like, we sauce it, we cheese it, and like we do everything.
Yeah.
And it's just better. I mean, and of course the price had to go up, but I mean, what isn't right now?
That's true. But when you're talking about, these specialty pizzas, it's still very affordable.
Yeah, it's still, I mean, my prices are way cheaper than they should be. But, it's nice for people to say, man, that was like back before we went with a modern POS system and we just did a cash register. You'd always get and we were cash only back then.
Yeah.
You'd always get they get up there and they start going through telling you what they want, and they'll stop in the middle and go, where we at?
Yeah.
And you go, 35. And they're like, oh, yeah, I don't want that pretzel and I don't need that extra icy, Yeah. Because paper money is real money, guys. Like that's the way it works in their brain. And
that's right. When you're swiping, it's a lot easier.
Yeah, they definitely spend with less discretion, for sure.
So it sounds like you have a walk-up system versus a self-serve system, like point of.
Yeah, because I don't like the setup in my concession stand. It's one of those things where immediately when coming in, it was like, okay, one of these days this is gonna have to change, and I'm hoping it does get to change one day soon. I'm actually waiting on possibly getting my screen completely resurfaced, hopefully.
Nice.
I actually contacted the guys that were on your podcast because those storms that blew through the Little Rock area the other day, they took out about like 8 or 9 of my panels.
Crazy. Wow.
Yeah, and it's the steel structure is good, but when it was rebuilt in the 70s after the original wood screen got knocked down by a tornado, they built a steel structure. But the substructure and the screen surface are all wood. And I'm hoping those guys can attach just steel and the screen surface, and we get to use our existing metal structure. But we're hoping to hear from the insurance soon on that.
Very cool. Is that something you got to deal with out there as weather?
Because of the screen and the age that it's coming along, and I knew coming in that was a bear that I was going to have to wrestle eventually as well. I'd say 3 or 4 times a season, a bad storm will blow through and knock just a 1 or 2 pieces off, sometimes. Right. Never anything super major. I got a guy that owns a tree service that lives like right down the road, and he'll run out there and
hook you back up.
Yeah, his price scale is flexible. Sometimes there's nothing worse than coming to prep a show. And like I said, between a quarter of a mile to a half a mile before you get to the theater, round in that corner,
you see
and just seeing a chiclet missing.
The light shining through.
Yeah, the light shining through, and it's like 5 hours until showtime, and
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's where this bad one happening this time is the argument that we're going to make with the insurance company. We're just going to be like, listen, guys, do you guys want to have to keep doing this like 2-3 times a year? Like, why don't we just
be proactive about it, help us out.
Yeah, come on. That's what we're hoping happens, but we're prepared for whatever. I mean, we'll get it band-aided back up. There's some real hillbilly ingenuity going on over here, so
it's all about pivoting. It's all about reacting as things come up. That's what we find is there's no way to prepare for these things. You just kind of got to jump into it and make it work best for you.
Yeah. Exactly right.
So we like to talk a little bit about the cinematic landscape. You mentioned that you had another drive-in that opened up not too far from you. Any of those indoors still open? Any of the movie houses? Oh, you said that the one was bought by the town, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah. When they back then, it was the theaters in town were run by Carasota, which is now defunct. But when Carasota, they sold the Rogers, the really cool one, to the city for $1. But they made them sign like some sort of BS, like 99-year no compete, can't show movie thing. And then the Sarasota 8 eventually turned into an AMC 8, and they finally negotiated to have that lifted, but they had already torn out all the equipment and planned to make it a live theater type event place. I don't think that was a bad move. I think they shouldn't have taken the option away for the theatrical releases. Now, they've, in the past couple of years, started to show movies there. But guys, it's like the backyard setup movies that people do. Like that's what they do on the stage. And I mean, so back in the day, that used to be in the early 30s when it was a single screen movie theater. It has like the big, like the high terrace or whatever, and then it drops lower, and then it goes into a less sloped area. And so when I was a kid, there used to be 2 screens, and they had built a big partition, and like the upper theater, like you almost set vertical, like your feet were almost at the heads of the other people when you were in that screen. And when you were in the lower, it was less of a slope, but the bigger screen was definitely down at the bottom.
That seemed to be the big thing, is they put a screen up in the balcony, and then
I mean, it comes back to our drive-in argument. The second screen gave them a larger booking flexibility. Right. No one told me that, but I would have no doubt that that's probably why it happened.
Well, we are in a small group, a selective group, because just like Jeff says in the documentary, there's something very original about everybody facing the same way, watching the same movie, getting the same experience. And the fact that you're still a single screener, it's many a times, I'm sure the owners have thought about it where they're like, oh, maybe we could figure it out, put another one over here. But there's something classic about it,
There is. I actually have enough room to do a very small one if I wanted to in one of my drive-up areas. Unless you have like a 600 plus car night, like they're not going to have to park over there.
Sure. Utilize all the space.
It'd be like a 60 or 70 space. You'd have enough room to do maybe 60 or 70 parking spots there.
Right. Give you the option to toss your third week over there.
Yeah. Damn third week.
I'm telling you every time. Well, I don't want to take up all your time. I want to give the guys some opportunity to pick your brain as well. You got anything for Jeffrey there, Mark?
Yeah, one of the things I do is I do cyber sleuthing before we talk to our fellow owners, and I look up your theater on Google Maps, and I get a street view, see what it looks like from the road, see what it looks like from above. And first of all, I am envious that you are in the middle of nowhere and can have bands. You have a couple neighbors, right? 1 or 2 neighbors around there?
A couple. The guy, like if you're facing my screen, the guy who lives immediately to the right of me, his name is Ronnie Miller. And if you look us up on Google Maps again and go a little bit further south down 21, you'll see that there's a Miller Lake. His grandfather sold that land to Clyde Davis to build the drive-in there. He's got like a 18-acre stretch that's sitting right next to me. He's like the nicest guy in the world and grew up working at the drive-in and has all kinds of stories and shares them with you. And like Ronnie don't care what I do though.
See, that's just perfect, because then you can, like you said, you can have bands and you can have speakers all over the place bouncing the sound off the screen. For us, the screen acts as this gigantic sponge and bouncer. So like if somebody is sitting in the front row talking, the people in the back row can hear it like it's next to them and vice versa.
Right.
And if we have a band, the people who are our neighbors who aren't really that close can hear it like it's in their front yard. One thing I also noticed was that from the road, you can pretty clearly see the screen. At least that's what it looked like on the street.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have like a line of like kids on bikes or people who turn their lights off trying to get a free show?
You definitely catch brake lights hitting hard sometimes.
Slowing on down, yeah.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when I said I used to work for the nail company, and they had a sawmill, like literally the sawmill that is like less than a half a mile down the road from the theater. There's about, within a 6 or 7 mile radius, there's probably about 6 or 7 sawmills. So big log trucks drive by all the time. And they love to hit the Jake brake in the middle of the show. Kind of slopes going around that curve, and you'll just hear them. Like, man, really?
Yeah. We got to deal with what we got, right?
Which would be excellent if you were showing Duel, But otherwise,
Right.
well, it's like we
Right.
have a racetrack that's not, again, not that close to us, but the sound carries, and you can hear it really clearly on our lot some nights. And I say, when we show the Mad Max movies, that's great because it's like natural surround sound, just engines revving.
Yeah.
When we do our Cannonball Run show, it'll be great. But when we're
Yeah.
showing, Anne of Green Gables, it kind of ruins the vibe a little bit.
Yeah. I've had raucous teenagers drive by and shoot off fireworks. As they're driving by. I've seen, I don't know how many wrecks and deer jumping over the fence and all kinds of stuff out there. Or that is the worst. You show up to do you're like, okay, I have a local kid that does a pretty good job mowing the grass, but in order to save some bucks, I always tell him, I'm like, hey, I'll weed eat, don't worry about it,
Right.
And I'll show up out there with the weed eater to go weed eat, and I'm just like, oh man, what's that smell? And you'll go over by the highway ditch, and there's just a deer laying there in the ditch, and you're like, oh man, I got to deal with that.
But we have a farmer very close to us too, and once in a while they have cows. Need I say more? And once in a while, the wind blows a certain way, and that's the aroma. It smells like a pasture, and I'm like, we're trying to sell hamburgers over here.
Ronnie like I said, Ronnie's got a nice stretch of land, and it's all fenced off. He's got a couple of horses, and usually about once a year, he'll buy about 18, 20 head of cattle, and he'll raise those. It's not like a huge cattle farm or anything like that, but I mean, it's never really that bad. Yeah, it can, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Well, how about you, Jeff? Any questions for Jeffrey?
I was thinking of one. I know when you redo a projection booth and turn it into a digital booth, it basically wipes out everything kind of historic that was in there. It looks like a room with a big square box, basically. But what I was wondering is, did you ever have to do anything extensive in your concession stand, or is it pretty much original?
No, so what? Here's Jeff will like this construction tidbit. So I don't know how they dealt with it, but back in the day, there was just like a 2-toilet girls' bathroom, and the guys have like 2 urinals and 1 toilet. And when
deal with it. Yep.
Yeah,
ours is very small, and we always say people must have been tiny in the 40s.
So back in the day, the projectors used to be in the concession stand. They were right across the hall from the bathrooms.
Okay.
So when Cecil and Diane went digital, the projector that they got was really powerful, and so then they physically moved and built it. If you look at our pictures of the drive-in, that building next to the ticket booth, that's where my projector is. It's up. Okay. It's right next to the ticket booth. So the guy running the ticket booth is usually doing the movie too, but I have a digital scheduler on it, and I usually know what time it's going to get dark enough for it to kick on, and I pretty much automate that. So when Cecil and Diane did the digital upgrade, the projector room became a 5-toilet girls' bathroom.
Oh, well, you really did change the inside, yeah.
Upgrade.
Yeah, really, really. I'm sure I can't imagine what it was like back in the day. I mean, there's nights where it gets on a busy night. It gets crazy, and there's a pretty good wait for that bathroom even then. So I can't imagine what it was. But one of the things that they did is they didn't do the guys' bathroom. So technically the girls have 2 bathrooms. They still have the little 2-toilet bathroom, but hopefully the key is when we get to do the concession stand renovation that we're going to take down the wall in between the small girls' bathroom and the guys' bathroom and give the guys like a 4-urinal, like 1 commode setup. And because let me tell you, there's Band-Aids everywhere in that old place.
Yeah. Well, again, you work with what you got. When you're coming into a structure that was built 50, 60, 70 years ago, it's very much that scenario where you're like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to make this work for my people. And, the beauty of it is there's a lot of love in the originality of a drive-in,
Oh,
that.
We always tell people, even if we own it, it's more like a stewardship. Like the idea is, maybe one day find someone that's gonna make it better than what it was. You know, you want to leave it better than you found it, and
Sure.
that's what
Right.
we're working on.
Right.
Well, it sounds like you're doing an amazing job. Why don't you let the people know where they can find you on the social medias? We know how important that is.
Okay, we're on Facebook. I have a Twitter account that I never do anything with anymore, but I have a Twitter account as well. I'll get on there every once in a while. We've got Instagram. We've got a website, 21drivein, dash in between the drive and the end.com. And that's where we're at social media wise.
That's beautiful. Now, as far as your schedule, are you seasonal or can people come visit you all year round? How's that work?
I mean, we're seasonal for the first run stuff. We usually run from May till October, but we are available to be used anytime when those regular gates aren't. You know, that's when private parties and private stuff becomes available for people to be able to afford to do on the weekends. But we're just now starting to open the doors more to stuff like that.
It's very smart. You know, we as we go every single year, we add little additions, little pieces, and you figure it out as you go. And it sounds like you're doing a great job keeping the dream alive. Anybody who's out there who happens to be coming through, whether tourist wise or coming through the area, be sure to swing by, show them some love. I'm super excited to come and try some of that pizza and check out that stadium setup.
We're hoping that we can start selling some advance tickets pretty soon here for next April when the solar eclipse comes through.
Yeah,
we're going to be right. We're going to be right in the path of totality, and we're hoping to make like an all-day thing of it because after the duration of it is done and over with, it'll be like 3 or 4 hours after that until it's dark enough to play a movie. So then like we can kick off from the all-day festivities. And if we do that, sell advance tickets, we'll probably post them on the website.
That's awesome. Solar eclipse party.
Yeah. I keep trying to think of appropriate solar eclipse movies to play when people come out for that type of event, but unfortunately, the majority of them are all very apocalyptic.
That's very true. Yeah, you're just like end on a downer. Hide your eyes, kids.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for making the time for us, Jeffrey. It's been a treat. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep that dream alive. And wish you very much success in the 2023 season.
Yeah, you guys too. Love the podcast. It's great.
Thank you, buddy. It means the world. And on that note, Jeff, take it away, my friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for coming out tonight to the Mahoning Drive-In Theater. We hope you'll come back and see us again real soon. The exit is on the right-hand side of the screen at the front of the field. And most importantly, have a very safe trip home. Good night and God bless you.